Real estate investment presentation. Impact of two or more loans. Get ready because we're raising the stakes with real estate. The scenario we want to be keeping in mind is comparing and contrasting different loan scenarios, trying to look for the best option for us. Some of those scenarios involving multiple different loans, two or more loans, in order to achieve the financing goals we need in order to purchase a property for us. Comparing and contrasting those scenarios possibly with other scenarios which only have one loan, or possibly multiple different scenarios that have multiple loans involved, each of them having different loan amounts, different loan terms, different loan rates. The general strategy would look something like this, and as we go through this, remember that we do take a look at this practice problem in Excel as well as in OneNote. Working through the practice problems will give you a much better idea of some of these concepts and solidify them as well. So general strategy, we're going to look at a situation. We got multiple different loans to get to our financing goal. We're going to take each of them, calculate then the payments for each of those loans using, if you're using Excel, the payment type of calculation, PMT calculation. Then we're going to combine the cash flows together. That's the general strategy. When we think about the loans going out, we can kind of combine them and think about them as a series of cash flows, combining the payments together, even if there's different terms, meaning one loan has a 30-year versus a 20-year or something like that. We could still look at the cash flows over the life of the loan, and that's one way we could try to value then the loan in such a way that we can have some comparison between them. Then we want to compute the effective cost of the amount borrowed using the combined cash flow stream. We can use an IRR, internal rate of return calculation, in order to do that, in essence rolling in the cash flow into one essence effective rate. That effective rate, kind of, you could think of it kind of like an average if you were trying to compare, say, job performance, which is often done, say, in sports. Someone's hitting average, how often do they get on base or something like that. We have to compare and contrast that with another hitter by taking their average of their times at bats. Or if someone's shooting free throws for basketball or something like that, we have to take the average of how many they made versus the amount of attempts they have, the attempt then being to get some kind of ratio that would be comparable. We're doing a similar type of thing here because if we have multiple loans with multiple rates and multiple different payments, we can compare those payments out, but it can be quite confusing. One tool or use that can be more helpful for us oftentimes is to come up with that rate, rolling it into that one rate, which can be easily compared. It's not the only comparison to make, but useful tool to use. So then we're going to use the effective cost to compare alternative options. So here's a scenario. We will work this scenario in Excel as well as in OneNote, which I highly recommend looking at. But just to get an idea of what we're talking about, let's imagine a situation where we need $500,000 for a loan. We need $500,000. There could be different kind of options that would come together, different kind of loan options that are coming together. Obviously, if we're going to look at more than one loan in order to achieve the same goal, then you can see the multiplication of options that will happen, because with each new loan that we have the differences between the loans. We've got the loan amount that could change, the term that could change, and then the rate that could change, which each added loan that comes into the scenario. So the number of alternatives with each new loan that comes into play goes up greatly. We might have one that's a fixed rate. We might have another one that's a variable rate, right? You can imagine a whole bunch of different scenarios. So then the question is, well, how can I compare and contrast these different scenarios? The general idea being that we're going to line up the loan amounts. So we got one loan for $100,000, a second for $200,000, a third for $200,000 to get us up to the $500,000. Then, and notice these home amounts, I'm really kind of concentrating on the loan amount here, so not really the home amount, so I got nothing down because we're really just focusing on the loans. And then we're going to go through the terms of that. We're going to say this first $100,000, 30-year loan, 360 months, then 30 times 12, and the rate we're going to say is the 6%. I could use that to calculate the payments then, using the payment calculation, which is about $600, $599.55. Second loan, we're going to say $200,000. We're going to say this one's a 10-year loan in order to complicate things a bit. Now we got these differences in the term or how long the loan is, which can make it a little bit more difficult. and we multiply that times 12 to get 120 payments. So we're going to be paying 120 months. The rate there higher now, 7%. If we calculate the payment then using the PMT function in Excel, we get to the $2,322.17 last loan, $200,000. We're going to say this is a 20-year loan. That 20 times 12 would give us 240 payments. The rate now at 6.5 for this loan. And if we work that out, it comes out to $1,491.15 with the payment calculation. Once we have these lined up, we could say, all right, I can kind of combine the payments together, but now I have these different loan terms. So even just comparing out the payments, for example, if I was to add up these three payments, it comes out to about $4,413. If I was to compare that to, say, another option where I got one kind of jumbo loan at the $500,000, I can compare those two payment options, but these three loans have different payment terms. So that makes it a little bit difficult because I'm not going to be paying that for 30 years. And so I'm going to have these different terms. So what we can do then is we could try to give a cash flow scenario, and it would look something like this. This is just the top of it, but we would have the $500,000. We can imagine that is the inflow that we got from the lender. We didn't actually get the money, but you can imagine basically we got $500,000, and then we used that, giving it to the seller of the home in order to purchase the home from the institution or the bank. Then we kind of got $500,000. Then we have an outflow, which for the first 10 years here, or 120 payments, is the sum of these three payments: the $599.55, the $1,491.15, the $2,322.17, which is about $4,413. So we're going to pay that $4,413 for 120 payments until this first loan expires. It will be gone after that point in time, at which point we'll continue paying the other two loans, which would be $599.55 plus the $1,491.15, until we would pay that sum amount for the remaining 10 years to get up to 240 payments total. After that point, this loan would expire. Then finally, for the last 10 years, we would only be paying around $600, the $599.55. If we sum this up, which seems quite tedious, but it's pretty easy to do in Excel, then we can take the IRR, the rate at which this would be zero. That would give us that 6.48 down here. That then is a rate that we can kind of use to do comparisons, and we can use a similar scenario if we had other scenarios with, say, 2 loans, or another scenario with 3 loans and different rates, or another scenario with 1 loan, just like we can kind of compare 2 different people's on how many times they got on base if their job is to hit the ball and try to get on the base. And you can compare that basically using those kind of the ratio kind of analysis. Similar kind of concept here. We got these different loans with different terms. How can we compare how good they are to us? Well, we can try to get some kind of percentage calculation as one factor to help in that determination. Now, because these payment flows are changing, because we have these different terms here, we can, of course, end up in a situation where we got the original financing. If I plan on selling it before the 5-year time period, then I'd have to figure my cash flow for whatever time. If I plan on selling in 8 years, for example, I'd have to determine my cash flows for the 8-year time frame in order to figure kind of the IRR, and then use that calculation in my analysis. So we'll focus on this. We'll do this a little bit more in depth, looking at the actual amortization tables for these 3 and so on in Excel, as well as in OneNote. Highly recommend checking those out.